Hello and welcome to the Arrow Knits podcast. This is episode 1. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Katie. This is a podcast about knitting and just general yarny goodness. Some other crafts thrown in there now and then. I do also crochet, as well as some other crafty things like needle felting and embroidery, and I try to sew, although I'm not very good at it. So occasionally those things will pop up as well, but mostly just about knitting and yarn in general. Again, my name is Katie, and you can find me on Instagram as @ArrowKnits and on Ravelry as knitmusic. I also have a group for the podcast called Arrow Knits. I'll be posting all of my show notes there, as well as a welcome thread. I'd love it if you'd come and say hello to me and introduce yourself. And we can sort of chat about all of the knitting related things there as well. So head on over there to check that out. I will also link to everything down below in YouTube so that you can more easily find me and easily find the Rav group as well. So just a quick little background on me. I live on Long Island, New York with my husband and our dog Lola and our crested gecko Scully and our betta fish Crowley. But I'm originally a New Englander. I was raised in Massachusetts, so if you have any questions about my accent or my lack of accent or any combination of those, hopefully that provides you with a little bit of an explanation. Sometimes people do ask me and they're a little bit confused about the way that I talk, so there's that. So yeah, I've been knitting for about 10 years. I love it. I started knitting when I was in college. I worked part-time at a yarn store to sort of just pay for my bills and my groceries and put gas in my car, and I worked weekends at a yarn shop all through college, and I just fell in love with knitting. And I haven't stopped since then. So I've sort of rediscovered my passion for it lately, and I really just wanted to share that with others. So again, thanks for joining me on this journey. So let's get started. I have a couple finished objects to show you first. They're both it's 2 pairs of socks. I'm kind of hot for sock knitting lately. I'm joining the Yarngasm box of socks knit along 2017, which I missed out on last year. I heard about it late in the year and there was just no way I was going to be able to knit 12 pairs of socks by the time it was due. So I was a little disappointed, but I still was checking out the projects and stuff. So I'm really stoked to be able to join this year. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, Kristen of the Yarngasm podcast and Bull and Vine Yarns, this is her second annual, hopefully it'll be annual, year-long knit along where you have to knit at least 12 pairs of socks and put them in a box. The socks have to be for yourself and they have to be fingering weight yarn, I believe. So it's kind of nice. At the end of the year you have a whole new sock wardrobe, and so if you're kind of trying to even it out, it's a pair of socks per month. I'm a little bit ahead of schedule. I already knit 2 pairs because I figure while I'm on a roll I should really keep going, because I'm sure that there will be other months in the year where I'm not able to knit a pair if something comes up or what have you. So I wanted to really just keep going while I had the momentum to keep knitting socks. So I have a couple pairs to show you. First up I have my Dunkin' Donuts socks. This is Fiber Nymph Dye Works in her Time to Make the Donuts colorway, and I do have 2. I just only have 1 on the blocker. So I'll just show you the one that's on the blocker for now. So yeah, Fiber Nymph Dye Company, Time to Make the Donuts. This is on her Bounce base, and the Bounce base is merino nylon. So it's a really kind of plump, squishy base. I really enjoyed working with it. I felt like it was a pretty substantial fingering weight yarn. So definitely not a light fingering at all. Definitely a true fingering weight. This is actually my first self-striping sock. So I'm excited about it. I did knit a baby sweater in Knit Picks Felici not too long ago, and that's a self-striping yarn, and I really enjoyed that. It came out really cute, but I had never knit socks with self-striping yarn before, so I was super excited about this. I'll put it a little bit closer up so you can see the colors are pretty true. They are Dunkin' Donuts themed. The orange and pink and brown classic DD colors, and I'm a Dunkin' girl. I love my coffee. I feel like Dunkin' Donuts is a steep New England tradition. It's obviously all over, but we sure do love our Dunkin' in Massachusetts. So it hasn't changed. I've been in New York now for about 7 years, and Dunkin' Donuts is still a huge part of my life. So really, really excited to have these. This is the Susan B. Anderson Smooth Operator Socks pattern. So it was my first time doing an afterthought heel. I've always done heel flap and gusset in the past. I've never done any other different type of heel before. So I found it really, really fun actually. It was sort of liberating to just keep knitting and knitting and knitting and knitting and put the heel in later. And it's a super, super thorough pattern. If you haven't checked it out and you're new to afterthought heels or what to do with self-striping yarns, as I was, it's definitely worth it. There's tons of pictures, it's sort of tutorial style, but she also includes a section where you could just print the pattern if you kind of have the gist of it already. You don't have to follow through all the tutorial stuff, but I found the tutorials really, really helpful, all the photos. I did have some fit issues with the heel at first. So the first sock I knit, the heel was sort of baggy over here. When I put it on my foot, it looked normal, knit up, but when I put it on my foot, I sort of had this type of thing going on. I have to pull it out for you to see how it was. So I did have to rip back the heel and make some adjustments to the pattern. And it's a paid for pattern, so I won't go too much into detail, but if you're familiar with afterthought heels, you know there are a couple ways you can sort of customize the length of your heel itself and the way it fits. So I did have to rip back, but no big deal. And the great thing about it was that I only had to rip back and do this little heel section, which was nothing. I didn't have to undo my whole sock from the toe up to here to redo the heel, which I thought was really, really great, because sometimes I get flustered if I have to rip back that far and I kind of get a little bit discouraged. So yeah, really, really enjoyed these. And I knit these on US size 1.5 needles. So 1.5 US, it's a 2.5 millimeter needle. And I probably could have gotten away with a US one because this is sort of, like I said, it's a nice plump fingering weight. I probably could have gotten away with the one. These might be a little bit roomy, and they're looking even a little more roomy as I look at them on the blocker, but they do fit me just fine. They do. So that's my finished object number 1, and I have another pair of socks to show you. I actually completed these first, and again, I do have a pair completed. It's just that I only have the one sock on the blocker to show you. These are I call them my hold on to your butt socks, because this is Primrose Yarn Co. in the Jurassic Park colorway. So that's a pretty famous line from Jurassic Park if you're a big fan like I am. So yeah, these are just a plain vanilla sock. I did loosely follow Kristen of the Yarngasm podcast. She has a vanilla socks pattern. It's free on Ravelry. It's guidelines on, it's a pattern on how to make a vanilla sock cuff down with a heel flap. I think that I may have changed the heel turn, which is why I'm saying that I loosely followed it. I did follow her pattern, but I think that I remember changing the heel turn. So I am in love with this pair of socks. It's probably my most favorite pair of socks that I've ever knit. And I'll show you the colors close up. You can see it's just really, really fun. So there are like these jammy reds, which are coming a little bit muted. They're coming off a little bit muted on the screen, but it's like this jammy blood red mixed in with these sort of dinosaur dark greens, and then splattered with these little neons. You can see the hot pinks and neons over here. So Just a really, really fun colorway that I think was really, really well named looking at the colors. So I picked this up at Rhinebeck actually in October 2016. It was my first time going to Rhinebeck. My husband drove me up there and it was a beautiful drive and I had so much fun. We only went on the Sunday of the festival, which was probably best for me because I feel like I may have gotten a little overwhelmed had we gone to the Saturday. I know the Saturday can be a little bit more chaotic. There's more people. And it gets a little bit crazy. So I think going for my first time on just the Sunday was probably best for me. And I had a blast. And so I hit up the Primrose Yarn Company booth and Kelsey was super, super sweet and she's a very talented dyer. So if you've never checked out Primrose Yarn Company before, definitely look into that. This is her zigzag sock base, which is, I believe, discontinued. And this is actually a light fingering weight. So there's quite a decent amount of yardage in that skein. It's a merino nylon blend, but it is really lightweight. I would have liked to knit these on a US one. I did knit them on a 1.5. I would have had to increase my stitch count though. The fabric looked better with a US one, but the sock was really tight fitting when I tried it on. So I went back and forth on that for a little while and I just decided to stick with my normal 64 stitch count and use the 1.5 needle like I usually do. But I'm really happy with the way that these came out and like I said, I'm just in love with the colors. And this was actually my first speckled yarn purchase, believe it or not. I know that speckles are everywhere, right? Speckles are so hot right now. But I hadn't bought any speckled yarn, so this was my first speckle purchase, yay! And I've bought quite a bit of speckled yarn since then. I sort of got on the speckle bandwagon a little bit late, I guess you could say, but I'm in love and now I know why everybody else loves it. It's just a fun time. So those are my two finished objects. I've got some works in progress to show you. Nothing that I'm too far along on. I do have actually a half object to show you, which again, I'm sorry, is another pair of socks. I'm, again, hot for socks. So let me show you that. So this will be my third pair of socks for my box of socks cowl. And I'm keeping it in my Fringe Supply Company bag, the Fringe Field bag, which I love. This is my new knitting buddy. I am so in love with this bag. I carry it everywhere. My husband gave it to me for Christmas and I can see why everybody loves these. I saw them, of course, I think I saw them first on Instagram and they seemed really nice. They seemed like really well-made bags, but when I saw everybody raving about them, I sort of didn't know why, but I love a well-made bag, so I asked Santa for one, and my husband got it for me for Christmas. I love it so much. I have been keeping sock projects in here. It's roomy enough to keep most small to medium projects in. Like, you can definitely obviously put a hat in here, a pair of mittens, pair of socks, cowl. You can put the start of a decent sized shawl in here. It's roomier than it looks. I know even when I opened it, I thought it was smaller than I expected it to be, but it actually fits a whole lot in here. And I love this leather handle that you can just sort of hang off of your arm and knit with. I use it when I'm outside with my dog and I just kind of follow her around and while I'm knitting, so I really like that. But the inside's pretty roomy and I don't know if you'll be able to see very well. It's got these pockets all around and the pockets hold a lot of stuff, so you can keep most of your knitting notions and little accessories and goodies. I've got my hand lotion in there, a little notebook, my pen, all that good stuff. And it never interferes with the main compartment space to put your project in. So I really, really like it. I'll show you my half object. So again, it's a pair of socks. Well, it's half a pair of socks. So haven't woven in the ends yet, but here it is. Show you this way and I'll get a little close up for you so you can see the colors a little bit better. Colors are really funky in this. This is a plain vanilla sock, as you can see. It is hedgehog fibers in their sock base. They call their sock base just sock. And this is a club colorway. Another gift that my husband had gotten me for Christmas was the hedgehog sock club. So it's really fun. They send you 2 different skeins of yarn every month for 3 months per subscription. So you end up with 6 skeins of yarn at the end of 3 months. So it's, I would say, I've looked into it before, it's sort of an expensive subscription, but you do get 2 skeins every month versus I know a lot of subscriptions are just the 1 skein per month. So do take that into consideration. But I was so excited. I was not expecting to get the subscription at all because I had sort of mentioned it to him, thinking that he wouldn't look into it because I had been just mentioning so many different things, and but he surprised me. This is actually one of the January sock club colorways. It's called Olive Blossom, and since we're in February, I think it's pretty safe to show the January club colorway. Everybody should have gotten their packages by now. This is not a color that I would have chosen off the shelf. It's not something I would normally be drawn to. Even in the skein, I was unsure, and I am in love. I think this is just really, really cool. It's super bright. It's way brighter in person than it's showing up. I know it is showing up pretty bright on screen, but it's even brighter in person. So very, very cool. It's this like mid-tone olive green with these electric pops of hot pink and hot purple. And then it's actually speckled black. The speckles all around are black speckles, which I thought was a really interesting choice. So not only are these colors that I wouldn't have chosen to purchase, but I would never have thought to put these together, period. So hats off to Hedgehog, because this is great. And it micro stripes, which is even better. It pretty consistently micro striped. You can see there is some pooling right here. It's not really that bad on this side, you can see the stripes, but it did sort of pool just a little bit on the top of the foot there. It doesn't bother me. These are super fun. It really doesn't bother me at all that it pooled a little bit there. So really exciting, super fun to knit because you want to see all the colors change all the time, even though it's not a self-striping yarn. It's still, because of the micro stripes, makes it really, really exciting. So with that, I'll get into my works in progress because I'll show you the little bit of the other sock that I have done, and then I'll show you some other works in progress that I have going. So here's a little bit of the second sock that I have. I have a good part of the leg done. I've got the little cuff done and a good part of the leg. So far, this sock has fewer black speckles, so I'm hoping they start showing up more again. I really like that. But having fun knitting it. I'm knitting it on US 1.5 needles, so 2.5 millimeters. And I'm using my little 9-inch circulars. This is a Chiagu, US 1.5 9-inch circular. So I knit both of the finished pairs of socks that I showed you on these 9-inch circulars, and I love them. This is my third pair using them. I'm really used to them now. It took a little bit getting used to. I know some people don't like them. They don't like working with them. They are a little bit awkward, and even on pair number 3 with them, the cast on and first couple rows of ribbing they just are awkward. I'm not sure there's any getting around it. It's not horrible. Obviously it's worth it enough for me to do that and keep going. I think some people must really not like that. It is a little bit different to hold. I think that these are really conducive to the style of knitting that I do. I'm an English style knitter, but I flick, so it's really, really easy for me to just sail along on these, and I can really, really fly, like just fly when I start going with the 9-inch circular. So I really, really like it. Another thing I wanted to mention before I forget about the Hedgehog Fiber sock is that it's a 90-10 blend. So 90% superwash wool and 10% nylon, which I had never worked with before. And I was a little bit nervous about it at first. When I cast on and started knitting with it, it was a little bit splitty. It's not a high twist. So I'm used to knitting with sort of high twist fingering weight yarns. This yarn does not have a high twist to it at all, and so I was splitting it a little more easily than I would normally have to worry about when knitting socks. But the fabric that this creates, I love it. I love it. It's hard to describe. It feels really durable, actually, I guess is the best way to say it. It feels like a really durable fabric, even though there's less nylon content in it. And I think it's great now that I've worked with it a little bit. I was, like I said, I was concerned in the beginning just because it's such a loose twist to the yarn that I was splitting it at first. And the chiagos are pretty sharp, so that has to do with it as well. So just a little bit more paying attention on my part. So that's my work in progress, my sock work in progress. One of the other works in progress that I want to show you is mittens that I've been working on. And unfortunately, I only have a little bit of the cuff done because I knit almost the entire first mitten and then frogged the whole thing and started it again, which is not a surprise for me. I do that sort of thing fairly often. If I'm not 100% pleased with the way a project is going, I have no problem frogging the whole thing and starting over, because I know that if I have a feeling something is going wrong, it probably is. So it's better for me to just start it over again and know that I'll be happy with the end result. So here we go. Here's my little cuff. This is the stone wool pattern Ossify. So the pattern is called Ossify Mitts, and it's by Stone Wool. I am knitting this in the Stone Wool Cormo, which is gorgeous, and I will talk a little bit about that in a second. So the Ossify Mitts is a paid-for pattern. It's put out by Stone Wool. I think they put out several patterns when they released the Cormo just to kind of showcase the new yarn. The Ossify Mitts are a twisted rib, as you can see. And I'm not giving anything away because it says that it's a twisted rib pattern right in the pattern description on Ravelry. So it's a twisted rib, and you end up cabling with it. So you're cabling with a twisted rib stitch all the time. And they describe this as, I think they say, a substantial mitt. And they are not kidding. So it ends up being a really long, not really long, but a long mitt. It comes well past your wrist when you wear it. So it ends up being quite the mitten with this twisted rib pattern. So I had originally cast these on with a US 6, which is a 4mm needle, I believe, and I had knit most of the mitten. So I didn't get up to the top decreases yet, but I had knit well past where the thumb was going to be put in, and I had probably knit up to, say, here on the mitten. And don't forget it starts way down here. So, and I realized that it was looking really skinny, and then also it's a long mitten, so it was looking really weird. I could put it on my hand, but it was pretty snug. The reason I downsized so much is because the description in the yarn says that it blooms in the soak. So I thought, well, if it's gonna grow on me a little bit, I guess I could really go down a needle size. I often have to size down. For most patterns, I size down just one needle size usually is enough for me to be able to reach the proper gauge with most things. And I think this recommends an 8, and I had gone with a 6, and it just was not the right choice. So I recast on with the 7, and things are working out great now. And also I realized that with the 7, my wrists don't hurt when I knit, which should have been a huge red flag to me when knitting this. It is a worsted weight yarn when using the size 6 needles. Because of all the twisted rib and because of the cabling, it was really hurting my hands and wrists, which isn't normal for me when I'm knitting. So I should have listened to myself, but that's okay because I'm starting it over. So it's quite a it takes a lot of time to knit this. It's a charted pattern, which I don't work with charts a whole lot, but I'm usually fine with them once I get going. The pattern did take me a long time to sort of become a little bit intuitive. And it's not something you can really memorize, but you can sort of figure out which direction the pattern's going to go next. But that really did take me a while. So I'm hoping that as soon as I've had all that practice, this will go faster now. And so I do want to mention about the yarn. I know I mentioned to you that this is the Stonewall Cormo that the pattern was designed for. I'll see if I can get right up close for you. So it is gorgeous. It's very soft and very strong at the same time. And I'll see if I can show you. Maybe you can kind of see. You'll probably be able to see it a little bit better if I show you the skein. I just want to show you up close what the twist of the yarn looks like. It's pretty unique from anything that I've seen before. The Stonewall Cormo is a worsted weight woolen and worsted spun yarn, which is super neat, I think. So it's durable and really soft. It does remind me a little bit, the feel of the fabric reminds me a little bit of Brooklyn Tweed Shelter, which is one of my favorite yarns to work with. I love Brooklyn Tweed yarns. I love Shelter. But some people know Shelter can be a little bit, some people have issues with breakage. I've never had any issues with Shelter breaking on me while I'm knitting. I have had it break on me while doing some seaming or like cinching up a hat. I have had it break on me, but never while I'm knitting. But it's Shelter is a super soft and very lightweight, physically lightweight feeling yarn. It makes a really lightweight fabric that's super warm. So this reminds me of that in a sense because of the softness, but it is really strong. It is worlds stronger. So I think that makes for a really great combination, and kudos to them for coming up with that. I had heard about the Stonewall Cormo on the Woolful podcast. Woolful is an audio podcast. If you've never checked that out, try to look into that. It is fantastic. It's interview style, but it's mostly the people that she's interviewing just really take point and tell their own stories. She gives them prompts now and then, but for the most part it's just business owners, makers, designers in the yarn and wool industry telling their stories. So this was one of them, and Stonewall Cormo, I purchased it from the Twig and Horn website, which is beautiful. They have all kinds of pretty things, but this was something that I was super interested in. I loved hearing the story about Twig and Horn, and I loved hearing the story of the Stonewall. So I don't know if it's available in person anywhere brick and mortar, but it's definitely available on the Twig and Horn website. And they have not a huge range of colors. They have a nice little selection of colors, but the cool thing is that each color has 3 different saturations. So this colorway is Tobacco 02. So there's also a darker tobacco and a lighter tobacco, and each colorway is like that, which I thought was very clever of them. And it seems like a really carefully sort of curated selection of colors. So again, absolutely beautiful. If you ever get the chance to see the Stonewall Cormo in person, that would be really lucky of you, because it's just really, really gorgeous. So that's one of my works in progress. The other thing I want to show you, again, is not very thrilling. I'm not very far along on it, but I'll give you a little peek anyway. So this is the beginnings of a Kit Kat hat by Andre Sue Knits. So it's one of those cute little hats that gives you the kitty cat ears when you put it on. It's a free pattern on Ravelry. So I just have, obviously, the very beginning of a brim going here. So you knit, I think it's about 3 inches of ribbing, plain stockinette, and you end everything with a 3-needle bind off, which gives you flat across the top, and it helps make those little kitten ears at the end. So I had been wanting to cast on a hat like this, and I had wanted to do it in like a pinky purple color, which I don't have any of. I'm not huge into pink, solid pink. I like flecks of pink and speckles, things like that, stripes, but I'm not huge into just solid pink. So this that I'm actually knitting with is a fingering weight yarn that I'm holding double. It is Swoosh Fiber Arts, their merino cashmere sock, and they describe it as a heavy worsted weight yarn. And it is so soft. So it's an 80-10-10, 80% wool, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon. And again, I'm holding it double, and it comes out to, it's not quite worsted weight. I would say that it's a good heavy DK is what I would call it. So I've sort of been back and forth on the gauge and which needles to use and how many stitches I should cast on. I did originally cast this on in the 88 stitches that Andre Sue Knits suggests, and I found that it was a little bit too tight. I imagine that after I soaked it a little bit, it probably would have been a little bit better, but I didn't want to chance it. I've even just looking at it, I kept looking at it saying, oh, this looks kind of small. So I didn't want to chance it, and I ripped it out. So this was my little start again. I did have about 3 inches of ribbing done, so, but that's okay. I'd rather have a hat that fits me and that I'll actually wear. But I'm really, really happy with the way this is knitting up. So it's a tonal sort of magenta-y purple with these little spots of red, like a reddish pink. It's not really showing up. Well, you can actually see there from the cast on some of that reddish pink, and you can probably see it. Yeah, you can see it perfectly in the skein. So it's mostly this tonal purple, but it does have that pinkish red going through it, and I think it's a really, really good color for me. Not to go full on totally pink, but have a little bit of pinky purple going. So I really, really love this. And I will talk a little bit more about this yarn and how I got it in a second. That's it for my works in progress. So I just have those couple things going, plus my sock. I do have some knits that I am planning. So I have some knitting plans in the works that I'd like to share with you. First though, I would like to do some acquisitions that I've gotten lately. So I've sort of really added to my collection since about December. It's now February, so it's been a few months that I've really been adding to my collection, more so than I had been in the past. So I won't show you everything all at once because I feel like it would be a little bit much. And I will save some, but I want to show you a few things. So one of them was the Swoosh Fiber Arts. This colorway is called Candyland Castle, and the colorway is exclusive to Eat Sleep Knit. So I put in an order at Eat Sleep Knit, which is based in Georgia, I believe, but they have a beautiful online website. I put in an order with Eat Sleep Knit for a Madeline Tosh sock for another project, which I'll talk about in my future knitting plans, so you'll see that as well. And they send a lotto card with every order. I never ordered for them before, so I didn't know what this was all about. You can win store credit, you can win a percentage off of your purchase, or you can win a shortcut in Candyland. So they do this sort of promotional game with their customers where they keep track of your yardage, total yardage purchased throughout, I believe it's the calendar year. And when you hit certain milestones, you go to another place in Candyland. So I had just purchased the one skein of yarn. I think it was like 375 yards. So I hadn't reached any of the milestones with that, but I scratched off the lotto ticket and it said shortcut to Candy Castle, which I didn't really understand at first. I had no idea what they were talking about. I didn't know that they did Candyland, any of that. So I quickly went online and looked it up and realized that I had a shortcut to the end of the game. And to reach Candyland Castle, you have to purchase 50,000 yards of yarn. 50,000. And there are different promos that they run, different ways that you can gain yardage without purchasing all those yards outright. But still, that's a lot of yarn. So I won the shortcut to Candyland Castle, and by winning the shortcut there, you win, each little land in Candyland has a skein of yarn that goes with it. So Candyland Castle was the Candy Castle shortcut yarn, which is super exciting. So I got this for free. They sent this to me along with a little goodie package. Some knitting goodies, some candy, a bunch of candies. The knitting goodies they sent were these Knitter's Pride stitch holders, which are always handy. I actually do use these, so this is super helpful. A little row counter, always good to have an extra one because I lose these all the time. And then some point protectors, and they're little yarn balls. I don't know if you can see them, but super cute. I've never used point protectors before, but I will now that I have them. And they sent some little candy and a little soak fiber wash in the fig scent, which I'm going to be mailing this off to my mom so that she can use it to wash some of her hand knits that I've given to her recently. So really cute little prize package, but when you reach the end of the Candyland game, you also get a $30 store credit and 10% off for the entire rest of the calendar year and free shipping for the rest of the year. That is like totally enabling me. So I'm very excited. I never win anything. I always put in for different like giveaways and all that good stuff on podcasts and on Instagram and on Ravelry, and I never win. And I was so excited when I scratched that ticket and looked up what it was. So yay! I'm really probably too excited about it, but I just think that is so awesome. So moving along with my acquisitions, I'll show you what I actually ordered from them that I got the shortcut lotto ticket in. I ordered some yarn with the intention of knitting a little baby sweater for a baby shower that I have coming up in March. They don't know the sex of the baby, which is super exciting. But as a gift knitter, it's a little bit nerve-wracking color-wise for what to choose. So I picked up some Madeline Tosh sock, which is 100% merino, which I never noticed before. I thought for some reason that it had some nylon in it, but it doesn't, which is fine because it's for a sweater, not for a sock. So that doesn't really matter to me too much. I just never had realized that it didn't have any nylon in it. So this is what I picked up, and this is gonna be hard. It's hard even when I photograph it. This color is called Farmhouse White. Let's see. That's not too bad. It's Farmhouse White. It is like the softest birch color you can imagine. So I don't want to say that it's dirty white, but it kind of is. So like a soft birch gray. It's ever so slightly heathered. I wouldn't even call it tonal. So in person, it's really, really beautiful. It's just hard to photograph and hard to show on the screen. So I thought this would be a good little neutral color for a little sweater for a baby. And as you can see, it's not perfectly caked anymore because I was messing around with it. I had started a little sweater, I did some swatching, I wasn't happy with it. So what I'm planning on doing with this is knitting a two-colored sweater with it. So I will show you my plans on that a little bit later on. So some other acquisitions that I'd like to show you are my Hedgehog Fiber Sock Club acquisitions. So I'm going to show you the December club colorways and the other January club colorway. So everybody should have their packages by now. We are in the middle of February, so there shouldn't be any danger if for some reason you didn't get your January package. Look away, but I'm sure that everyone has them by now. So I'll show you the other January color, and it is called Snapdragon. So Snapdragon, again, not something I would have chosen, but I really love it. And This is a Katie twisted yarn, not a Hedgehog Fibers twisted yarn. As you can see, it looks all lumpy. I untwisted it because I just had to see the way it looked in the skein itself, and then of course I tried twisting it back up beautifully like they do, and it just didn't work, and I got flustered, so this is my quick and dirty job. But so this seems to me like a very heavy speckle overall on like a natural base, but it's very autumnal speckle. Now it does have the hot pink in it, which negates that a little bit, but over here you can see these oranges and browns, and let's see, out right there, they're like these hunter greens. So I think it's a pretty uniquely speckled type yarn. So I can't wait to knit this up. Part of me kind of wants to use this in a shawl, but I'm not sure. It'll probably still end up being socks. But I do think that this would be really, really neat in sort of a two-color shawl. This being like a heavily speckled one with maybe a more solid. I don't know. I think that it could be really, really neat. So this was the other January Hedgehog Fibers Sock Club colorway. So now I'll show you the December. So the first one, and I unwrapped these at Christmas because my husband had gotten them ahead of time. So this is called Waikiki, and it is pretty much as bright as it looks on the screen. Actually, I think that it's even brighter because some of the really bright parts are blowing out. Yeah, there are parts that almost look white on the screen that are just like, this is crazy highlighter yellow. Just crazy electric highlighter yellow. It's beautiful. So this is really fun, sort of tropical colors. This will definitely be a pair of crazy socks that I can't wait to knit up. I think I'm saving this for probably a pair of socks to knit in July or August, just because I like a good themed sock, and I think, well, this is a great summer sock. So these will probably be saved. This will probably be saved and knit up in the summer. And the other colorway they sent for December is pretty fun as well, although not as crazy bright. This is called Apple Sour. And it's a really interesting, it does have that sort of acid green to it, but the rest of it is very peachy. It's got pink, it's got red speckle throughout, that nice red speckle that you can see there. So I think this will also, if I can, I'll probably also save this for summertime socks, because I think this is also sort of tropical feeling in a weird way. So I'll probably save this. So yeah, Apple Sour, very, very pretty. So that's it for acquisitions that I wanted to show you. The something else that I'd like to talk about is sort of my future knitting plans. Some of these are short term, and one or two of them may be longer term, depending on how my knitting goes. So the first thing I want to show you is that farmhouse colorway of the Malintosh. I'm planning on making a flax light with this by Tin Can Knits. It's a free pattern. I've actually knit flax before. I've knit the regular flax, which I believe is for worsted weight yarn, for a baby before, and I loved knitting it. It's a super beginner friendly pattern. It's extremely thorough for a top-down raglan, and I really enjoyed knitting it, and it was very, very easy. So this is the same pattern, the same style, except it's written for fingering weight yarn. So I'm planning on, and I'm totally copying from somebody else that I saw on Ravelry. Well, I saw a few striped versions, but I saw one that just blew me away, and I need to knit a striped version. So I actually happen to have in my stash, old stash, like 8 years old stash. This is also Tosh sock, and this colorway is called Gilded. And I think that I bought this, like I said, about 8 years ago at Knitty City in Manhattan. And I don't think I even lived in New York yet. I think that I was visiting and insisted that we go to Knitty City. So I bought this skein of Gilded, and I never used it. I don't know, I was coveting it for some reason. But I think that with the farmhouse white, it makes a really cool combination for a sort of gender neutral stripy pullover. This is a sort of egg yolk color. It's very golden. It's showing up more orange, I think. It's a little less orange in person. It's more of a golden egg yolky type color. And so then along with this sort of dirty white color, I think would make a really nice striped cardigan. So I'm going to try that out. I have to obviously wind this skein up and get going on that because the baby shower is at the end of March. So I should have enough time. And I also saw in that project on Ravelry, I should have made note of the user's, the person's username, but they also had then taken the leftovers and made little hats. And they made one with the little contrasting pom-pom and the other one with the little cord that you tie off at the top. So cute. So I don't know if I'll have time to knit little matching hats. Hopefully maybe I can knit at least one. If not, the baby is not due until the end of April, so I can always send along the matching hats to mom before the baby gets here. So I'm excited about that. I'll definitely be casting that on sooner rather than later because I need to get that done. So if I put my mind to it, I should be done with it, no problem. The other thing I have planned is my next pair of socks. Of course, I figured if I always have a plan in mind, then it'll keep me motivated. So this is the yarn that I'm planning on using, and it is Wool and Vine yarns in her Tega colorway, and this is on her Blitz base, so it's gold stellina. So the blend here is a 75-20 and then a 5% stellina, gold stellina, which is really neat. So I'm not usually drawn to sparkle yarns. Not exactly my style, but I figure I could use a good pair of glitter socks, right? Who couldn't use a good pair of glitter socks? And I thought that it was beautiful. This color is, this is me. This is my jam. It is a mauve. It's sort of a dusty mauve. Almost like a, yeah, like a dirty, dusty, very light purple. And I say mauve. I know that some people say mauve. I'm not actually sure which one is correct. I've always said mauve. So mauve, mauve, that's a light purple. It's beautiful. So I'm very excited to knit with this, but because it's a tonal, and I've been knitting with either self-striping or crazy speckles, I get to do something textural. So I'm planning on knitting the Elementary Watson socks, and that's a free pattern on Ravelry. The designer's name is Sherry Menton. It's a toe-up pattern. So I've knit one pair of toe-up socks in the past, and I remember enjoying it. I don't think it's my favorite method of sock construction, and I probably won't be as fast doing toe-up because I'm not as familiar with it, but I really like variety in my knitting, so I'm happy to kind of try that out again. And the Elementary Watson socks pattern is sort of an homage to the BBC show Sherlock, and in, I believe, episode 1, Martin Freeman has this really cool knit sweater on, and so Sherry went ahead and sort of mimicked that pattern. It's sort of arrows in purl stitches with cables down each side of it. So if you're a fan of Sherlock on BBC, you will definitely recognize that. So I'm a big fan. I'm very excited to knit those for myself, and especially in this yarn because I think that it will make the cables really pop and nothing will get lost. So I think that it's a really good pair for the pattern and for the yarn. So I'm excited for that. Need to finish those hedgehog socks first, but these are definitely next on the chopping block for socks. And then the only other thing I wanted to mention, which is sort of way off in my knitting, not way off in my knitting future, but after I get all that stuff done, is I would love to knit the First Light shawl by Vera Valimaki. I first saw it on Instagram. Kelsey from Primrose Yarn Company had posted a finished one that she made in her yarns, and I just thought it was so unique. It's a 2-color shawl. It's intended for a solid and a speckle. So it's intended to use up those two things to the best of their advantage. It is a crescent shaped shawl, but it's also asymmetrical, which is how they describe it in the pattern on the pattern page in Ravelry. So it's an asymmetrical yet crescent shaped shawl, which does describe it perfectly if you take a look at it. So it's got stripes and then a little lace panel. Looks like a very easy lace stitch pattern. And I've never knit a 2-color shawl before, and I've never knit a shawl that size. I knit a bunch of one skein of fingering weight shawls before, just to go around the neck, but I've never made one that like you could really cozy up in and wrap. Not that 2 skeins is huge, but in comparison, of course, it's double. So I'm really excited about that. I do have some yarn in mind that I'd like to use that I think would be perfect for it, but I'm gonna have to hold off on that until at least I get the baby sweater done, because I feel like that's sort of the most important right now. So those are my future knitting plans, and I would like to mention some podcasts that I really like watching, and I won't. I think I'll try to maybe mention one per episode, just so it doesn't get crazy, because there's so many out there. But one that I really do enjoy watching is the Girls in the Yarn Cafe. It's Christy and Tristan. They're a mother-daughter. They're both indie yarn dyers. Christy has Yarn Cafe Creations and Tristan has Dragon Horde Yarns. They both do some beautiful, beautiful work. But they have a podcast together that they do. I think they're going to every 2 weeks at this point. They were weekly. And it's just a lot of fun. They're just very down to earth. They're super, well, they seem to be super approachable. And I just really enjoy watching them. They talk about their projects, they talk about their dyeing, they talk about their life stuff in the beginning, which is really nice. They kind of talk back and forth to each other and also to the viewer, so I think that's always kind of keeps it a little bit more interesting. And yeah, they are just keeping it real, which I really, really appreciate. So if you haven't checked out the Girls in the Yarn Cafe, go and check them out. They seem really, really sweet, and they, again, both have really cool indie yarn dyeing businesses, also worth checking out. And they're both also on Instagram, I believe, so you can check them out there as well. So I just wanted to throw that out there. So I think that's it for my podcast today, for episode 1 of Arrow Knits. Sounds weird saying that. But thank you so much for joining me. If you had fun chatting with me today and you would like to subscribe to my channel, please feel free to go ahead and do that. And if you enjoyed chatting with me today, look out for my next video. I'm gonna try to do every 2 weeks. So about twice a month, just so that I have enough time in between each podcast that I have different things to show and I'm not talking about the same things like I would if I did weekly. So I'm going to try to do every other week if possible. But again, thank you so much for joining me. Happy knitting, and I will see you next time.